of International Food and Cultural Development to give a keynote presentation on U.S. model of land-grant university and its impact on cultural production. Please welcome.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Koda, for your introduction. Thank you so much. I'm Cruzado, president of Montana State University, and I'm truly honored and humbled to be asked to give the keynote speech at this 4th International Conservation Agricultural Conference in Southeast Asia. First of all, I would like once more to recognize the members of the platform party who joined us this morning. Her Excellency Rector Sen Sin Ento Tim, His Excellency Dr. Han Chun Narun, Minister of Education, Youth and Sport, Mr. Samban Tak, Mr. Paris Chu, Dr. Olivier Girard, and I would also like to thank Dr. Manuel Reyes of North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, and Dr. Mark Gardner, who's the Senior Counsel for the Board of International Food and Agricultural Development, known as BIFAD, and for the International Program for the Association for the Public and Land-Grant Universities for their assistance. I'm truly honored to be here today, as I said before. I'm mesmerized by the beauty of the Kingdom of Cambodia. It reminds me of my native Puerto Rico in so many aspects. There's a tropical weather here, so as I look at the vibrant colors of the flowers and as I appreciate the sweetness of the fruits, there's something that strikes home to me immediately. I also need to say that it's absolutely wonderful to be able to follow His Excellency Undersecretary of State, Dr. Rizalza Touch, of whom I have heard many wonderful things. And after his presentation, it's evident to me, and these are some of the wonderful things that I have heard about him. Number one, they tell me that he really answers his emails quickly, and all of them, personally. That's commendable. They also tell me that he loves students, and that immediately places him very high in my book. And number three, as we have seen today, they tell me that he wants to make a difference, and that is evident. In fact, I was just thinking as we had an opportunity to take a photo of this wonderful group of individuals, that the people in this room can really transform the world. And that's why we're here. That's why we have traveled from all over the world to be convened right here. And as I was thinking about, so how can I give a keynote speech that can move and inspire this wonderful group of individuals, I thought about, rather than talking about specific aspects of agriculture, if I could go back in time and think about the most inspirational story that has guided my life. That's what I wanted to share with you this morning. And I do that in the spirit of complete humility. And since my background is in agriculture, in literature, I thought that I should do something akin, and I'm going to tell you a story. And it's a story that started 150 years ago, when the United States, let's see if I can start this. Yes, right there. When the United States was still very young, and a great civil war broke between the North and the South. And you can see there in the image, that was the Civil War in the U.S., the blue against the gray. This war lasted from 1861 to 1865. 4 horrific years during which more than 620,000 soldiers died, most of them from disease. One of the things that we seldom remember is that that civil war came right on the heels of a horrible famine in the U.S. Actually, we did not know how to cultivate the land. It might take some people in the audience by surprise if I tell you that the U.S. was a hungry nation back then. So that set the stage for what was about to come. And what happened was this very simple thing. There was a U.S. congressman, his name was Justin Morrill, who proposed a big, bold, hairy idea. This was the idea. What about if we could establish one public university in each state and territory of the Union for the purpose of educating the sons and daughters of the working families of America? This thing is not working. So perhaps that's okay. Let's leave it like that. Okay, so that was the idea. Let me repeat it again. To open one public university in each state and territory of the Union for the purpose of educating the common men, the common women. Needless to say, that was a controversial proposal. And its opponents in Congress viciously attacked it. I have brought for you some quotes that I thought would be interesting this morning. One senator called this proposal, quote, one of the most monstrous, iniquitous, and dangerous measures which have ever been submitted to Congress, he said. Another congressman called it one of the most extraordinary engines of mischief, an unconstitutional robbing of the Treasury for the purposes of bribing the states. Harsh words. But Justin Morrill persisted, and in the middle of the Civil War, and this is what I want to recognize today, in the middle of the Civil War, when the very future of the nation was in question, his proposal became law. The Land Grant Act became law on July the 2nd, 1862. And this is what I find so inspirational, and this is what I wanted to share with this group. This morning already, when talking about the importance of conservation agriculture, we know that we are faced with extraordinary challenges, right? But think about this. 150 years ago, we had this group of individuals who, rather than being constrained by the horrors of a civil war or by the extraordinary hunger, they decided to envision a better and brighter future. And the seed of that better and brighter future was going to be education for all. The new colleges and universities that were envisioned by Morrill and by Lincoln were very different from what we knew at the time. At the time, what we had was private universities, mostly of them teaching law, medicine, and the clergy. These new universities were going to teach something practical. These new universities were going to teach agriculture, and they were going to teach engineering. Today, there are more than 100 colleges and universities in the United States that were created thanks to the Land Grant Act. And if you want to measure the impact of this piece of legislation, I want to know in this room, by a show of hands, how many of you have had an association with a land-grant university in the U.S.? Take a look. Isn't that impressive? Now, the full potential of the land-grant universities was only realized incrementally with other steps. This is what I find so interesting. So now we open one public university in each state and territory of the Union, right? Only to find, my dear friends, that we didn't have much to teach. Since these colleges and universities were so revolutionary, and they were going to focus on agriculture and engineering, guess what? We didn't have much to teach. And then that was when another important piece of legislation was passed in the U.S., the Hatch Act, which established the agricultural experimental stations. That's where we conducted the research And then that's what we decided that we were going to teach in the classroom. And that connection between teaching and research is absolutely essential to the conversation that we are going to have here today and tomorrow and for the rest of this conference. But that is still incomplete. There was still a third part that was absolutely essential. And that is, what do we do with that research that we're going to take to the classroom, but that we have some individuals that cannot benefit from it because they are not residents. And that's when the figure of this gentleman here, Seaman Knapp, was extraordinary. That third element of extension, of service, as we call it in the land-grant universities, that completed that triad. That's the mission of every land-grant university, that every day, in everything we do, we're going to excel in three areas: excellence in teaching, excellence in research, and excellence in extension. And just as I said that 150 years ago we established the land-grant universities, let me pause and reflect on the history of Seaman Knapp, because 100 years ago, next year, we will be celebrating the piece of legislation that established extension in the US. And the story goes like this. In the 1890s, the southern United States suffered the disastrous effects of a boll weevil infestation, which was rapidly devastating cotton plantations, a mainstay of the South's fragile economy, which was still recovering from the devastation of the Civil War. Historical accounts tell us that Seaman Knapp rescued the cotton industry from the boll weevil. When we take a closer look at his role, an interesting fact comes to surface, and one that I want to call to the attention of this group because it might be pertinent to our conversation about conservation agriculture. And that is, through research, the U.S. Department of Agriculture had already developed a plan to control the pest by accelerating the point of maturity of the cotton plant. The department had disseminated the results through reports and pamphlets, but growers were skeptical. Farmers then, and many farmers now, did not believe in book farming. I don't know if you have found that in your lives. So Seaman Knapp was appointed as, and this was a long title, Special Agent for the Promotion of Agriculture in the South, with the specific charge to take the plan directly to the cotton growers. My friends, let me insist on this point. It was clear that a solution to the pest problem had been identified, but implementation of the proposed plan necessitated something more than just science. It required good and effective communications. And I think this is very important for the topic at hand. In order to create the desired change, the plan needed a person who would earn the good faith of growers and businessmen alike. It needed someone who could provide objective and relevant information, who could show farmers how to replicate or adapt the proposed solution, and in the process, build a trusting relationship for the future. The plan needed an intermediary who would bridge geographical and cultural differences. It was said then that the figure of the extension agent was born. The farmer, this is a quote from Knapp, must solve this problem on his own farm and with his own hands. And this is a famous quote. What a man hears, he may doubt. What he sees, he may also doubt. But what he does, he cannot doubt. I should also mention that about this time, in 1900, the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture appointed Seaman Knapp to become a special advisor to agriculture in the southern states of the U.S., and Seaman Knapp believed that the area was conducive to the growing of rice, so he visited the West Indies, including my native Puerto Rico, the Philippines, Japan, and India, to study rice culture and learn the varieties best suited for the southern U.S. He brought back strains of rice that enhance America's rice production multiple-fold, which is just one very small and early example of how the United States has benefited from collaboration with international growers and scientists, particularly those from Southeast Asia. Now, one of the contributions of Seaman Knapp that I also would like to recognize today, or maybe not, is his famous demonstration work in a farm of Texas, when he established in 1906, and by 1912, 101 years ago, farmers and farm agents were traveling many miles demonstrating better production methods. By 1914, there was at least one agent in almost every county in the nation. The year of 1906 is also important because Seaman Knapp visited Tuskegee Institute under its founder and first president, and this was the photo that I had. That was, the president was Booker T. Washington, and there he met George Washington Carver, an emancipated slave who became a scientist, educator, and innovator extraordinary. Sharing the same passion for demonstration work as Seaman Knapp, Carver had developed a hands-on program employing a mule-drawn wagon. There it is, the Jessup wagon, as it would come to be known, was the first moving classroom of its kind, a marvelous roving laboratory that exposed rural communities to the latest in farm machinery and equipment. According to his grandson Roger Knapp, this development was instrumental in preparing a system of black agents that would help the black farmers. And by 1914, there were over 100 black agents covering 11 states. That's what he reported. The demonstration work also resulted in prosperity in ever-expanding circles. Now agricultural communities started buying products manufactured in urban centers, which resulted in economic growth and a better quality of life for us. Today, just in Montana alone, we have 7 research farms and 55 county offices that serve extension agents across the state with the same philosophy. And that brings me to why I want to talk to you about my university, Montana State University, and the state of Montana. Let me start with this. To put this in context, where is Montana? That's where I traveled from to come here. Montana is 340,000 square kilometers and has 1 million people. To put in context, the Kingdom of Cambodia is 181,000 square kilometers, but has about 14.8 million. So Montana State University is located in the city of Bozeman, and this is what our campus looks like in summer and in winter. Well, not really. I must tell you that when I boarded my plane in Montana to come here on Friday, the air temperature was negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, which is minus 28.89 degrees Celsius. I noticed that the temperature at the same time in Baton Bank was about 100 degrees higher. So, believe me when I say that it is wonderful. And this is what the Montana landscape looks like. Mountains and prairies. Agriculture that's campus. So agriculture in Montana's largest industry, and some of the largest ranches in the United States are in our state. In 2010, agriculture generated $2.6 billion in income on 29,400 farms and ranches in Montana. The state's 2 major agricultural products are wheat and cattle. Remember I said Montana has 1 million people? Well, it has 2.5 million cattle. So in Montana we raise more than 5 million acres of wheat, That's about 2 million hectares per metric. To help support this industry and the people of Montana, we have 7 research farms and dozens of extension agents across the state. This map shows all the places where we have a presence. And allow me quickly to enumerate 7 projects that we're currently involved in. Number 1, MSU is the Montana State University, is the major supplier of new wheat varieties for Montana growers. Approximately 2.5 million acres grow wheat varieties developed at the university. Number 2, MSU has released 9 new plant varieties since 2009, 4 varieties of winter wheat, 2 varieties of spring wheat, a durum wheat, hay barley, and a pea. The Montana State University Winter Wheat Breeding Program has introduced 18 varieties of winter wheat since 1992. 3 of the top 4 varieties of wheat planted in Montana in 2012 were developed by Montana State University's Winter Wheat Breeding Program. Those are the Yellowstone, the Chinook, and Rampart, made up more than half of the total winter wheat planted. Winter wheat brings in about $600 million in revenue each year to Montana. Number 4, the Scudder Diagnostic Laboratory, a laboratory established to identify plants and insect infestation with a significant plant disease focus, made 1,739 diagnoses of identification on 1,315 diseases and insect samples just last year alone. The education of 1 field agronomist regarding striped rust impacted approximately 48,000 acres with an economic benefit to growers of $4 million. Number 5, Montana students now have the opportunity to enroll in the first Montana Center Veterinary Medicine program being offered in cooperation with the College of Veterinary Medicine at Washington State University. 10 Montanans will be chosen for the new Montana Cooperative Veterinary Medicine program and take their first year of classes at MSU. During their summers, they will have opportunities to work in Montana veterinary practices. And my friends, for a state that has 2.5 heads of cattle for every living person, don't you think that this is the right program to have? Number 6, honeybee pollination is responsible for more than $15 billion in increased crop revenue per year in the United States. However, the total number of managed honeybee colonies has fallen from 5 million in the 1940s to 2.5 million today. Montana State University scientists are among the many researchers in the country who are conducting research to better understand the reason for honeybee death. And number 7, and this is where your help is needed, and if you help me find a solution, that would be extraordinary. Wheat stem sawflies cause approximately anywhere from $75 to $100 million damage per year in Montana, making the insect the most destructive wheat pest in the state. Overall losses from this pest have been estimated at $350 million for the entire northern Great Plains. MSU wheat breeders now have a 5-year, $500,000 grant from the USDA National Institute for Food and Agriculture to look for new resistant traits that will help wheat resist the pest. The researchers will screen 4,000 to 5,000 varieties of wheat that originated in areas of the world where wheat stem sawflies are a problem. Then they will incorporate new resistance genes into new varieties of plants. You know, everywhere I go in Montana, when I sit with researchers and farmers and growers, they all have the same question. What is Montana State University doing to help us? How can you help us in this problem of enhancing production, minimizing cost, and protecting the environment? What research is underway, they ask me, to help us grow a better future for our community, our state, and our world? These are burning questions, and these are the same questions that we will be discussing today at this Congress. As I think back to my comments, I'm impressed with the thought that even though I may have traveled here from very different landscapes, I suspect that these are questions that are common to all of us. How will we grow a better world? Indeed. And as I said before, when I saw that photo that we were taking this morning, I know that we have the right people in the room. So, in summary, I have observed during my career that the key concepts of conservation agriculture are very similar to the sustainable agricultural problems that we have in Montana and in my native country of Puerto Rico and throughout the U.S. And I have observed that no matter where we may in the world, there may exist a tension between proponents of sustainable agriculture and large-scale conventional agriculture. I have seen this in Montana and other parts of the U.S. Perhaps this also occurs in Southeast Asia. But you know what? When I experience that tension, I go back to the inspirational story that as I told you, about a group of men who were confronted with the Civil War, and rather than thinking about that, we decided to envision the future and how we could do something better for generations to come. Therefore, it is my suggestion that all of us here today strive to find the common areas where conservation agriculture can also make significant contributions to conventional agriculture and vice versa. Let us meet where we have commonalities and build from there rather than focusing on differences of languages and approach. So, I would suggest that the shared knowledge and experiences concerning conservation agriculture may still flow from Southeast Asia to the U.S. and also from the U.S. to Southeast Asia as a result of this conference. It's through this sharing that important progress can be made. Again, I humbly submit this story in the hopes that it will be of some value to some of you. It is a small and inadequate gift of the tremendous hospitality you have shown me. And I will leave my visit to the Kingdom of Cambodia rich with knowledge of this country and with many new friendships. Allow me to finalize this by thanking you for your time today, and particularly thank the conference organizers, Dr. Victor Ella, the program chair, Dr. Manny Reyes, who have been absolutely fantastic, Dr. Lee Wui, Dr. Samran Sombanpanik, Dr. Conrada. And I also thank our host for the conference from the Cambodian Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport, His Excellency Dr. Han Chun Narun, His Excellency Undersecretary of State Dr. Touch, and the University of Battambang, especially Her Excellency Rector Singh M. Monteith. I will leave you with a quote from Seaman Knapp that is pertinent to the work we do here today, as it was when he made it in 1894. And this is the quote: "Your mission is to solve the problems of poverty, to increase the measures of happiness, and to harness the forces of all learning to the useful and needful in human society." Best of luck for all of you in this conference. Please come to see us at Montana State University, especially in the summer. Thank you.
Sharing the history of the land grant